Okay, so we're just starting a webinar here about Macedonia and travel to Macedonia. So leading the discussion and answering some of our questions today will be Meto, who is actually our ground guide in Macedonia. And the other thing I should mention quickly, though, is Meto, you are not just a guide who loves being outdoors and leading these kinds of activities, but you actually have a degree in archaeology as well. So you're the sort of perfect combination to introduce our travelers to Macedonia. And then Trish will be popping in and chatting a little bit about culture and some of the biking and other activities available on the trip. But just to start, we've got Meto to tell us a little bit about Macedonia travel, how it's changed over the years. And even though a lot of us hadn't really heard much about Macedonia yet, maybe Meto, you can tell us a little bit about what we should know about Macedonia. Why is Macedonia emerging and a great destination to know?
Hello, and good evening from Macedonia. It is around 7 o'clock in the evening now, here in our beautiful country. And yes, as you mentioned, I am an archaeologist, but I'm also very active. I hike and climb, I bike, and I do love being outdoors. And Macedonia, fortunately, has a lot to offer. As a country for people that want to experience the culture, but also experience the outdoors. You have asked me when and how did Macedonia emerge as a destination. I can say that, Macedonia was quite a visited country in the 80s, but we are a recent democracy, I can say. We have been an independent country since 1991. And since then, we also emerged as I would say, tourist destination as Macedonia. But in general, we are the country that's on the crossroads of the Balkans. So we have a lot of culture, a lot of cultural heritage in our country. We have our history goes as far as the prehistory, deep prehistory. We have also a lot of ancient ruins, both Macedonian and Roman. There is a strong Greek influence, ancient Greek influence in the country, so this is quite visible in the ancient cities. We have been the crossroad of Christianity and Islam. So we have a strong layer of Byzantine Empire in presence. We have beautiful Orthodox churches from the early ages of Byzantine Empire. We also have some beautiful mosques from the Ottoman times. And all of these cultural presences are quite visible in the architecture, in the cultural heritage, but also in the traditions of the people. So in the traditional clothes, in the traditional music, there is a strong Orient presence also in the foods, in the spices we use in the foods. So it is a really interesting mix of the East and the West here in Macedonia. So in the recent years, we have started to accept more and more tourists, which made us develop and increase the capacities for hosting people, the infrastructure in general, and of course the services in the country in general. And we have seen in general increase of tourists from all over the world that come to Macedonia, especially in the active part, because Macedonia being, I don't like this term very much, the landlocked country, but we are such. We are a country that doesn't have any access to the sea. Our neighboring countries have so, but our country has a lot of mountains, a lot of lakes, and it offers not the mass type of tourism where you have a lot of people coming and staying in big resorts, but offers more adventurous, more rural, and more, I would say, active in every sense type of tourism. Active in the sense of being active as a person, as sports, but also active in being active and present in small rural areas, experiencing the culture directly with the people, staying in small homestays, experiencing the daily life of small villages in the mountains in general. So we have experienced increase in every sense of the tourism, but still you can say that Macedonia is kind of off the beaten track place and is not very well known in the Western world, especially in North America.
Now, just to familiarize people listening a little bit more with Macedonia, because it's not something off the top of your head you can easily usually locate on a map because we're not as familiar with it. So can you just remind people the location of Macedonia? So what are some of the neighboring countries and how does it sort of have influence?
You can say Macedonia is in the middle or in the heart of the Balkan Peninsula, and our neighboring countries, the best known country would be Greece. That's our southern neighbor. On our east border, we have Bulgaria, which is kind of the bridge between Europe and Asia, being neighboring also to Turkey in that sense. And Macedonia is also neighboring to the north with Serbia and Kosovo, and to the west with Albania. So we are practically in the middle of the Balkan Peninsula, in the heart of the Balkan Peninsula, like the crossroad between all of these countries.
And one thing that is always on people's minds whenever they're considering going to a destination, especially if it's one that they're less familiar with and know less about, they're always kind of concerned about the safety. So what can you tell us about the safety of Macedonia? Is it a safe place to travel, and is it affected by some of the things that are going on maybe in neighboring areas?
No, well, both Macedonia and our neighboring areas are quite safe. I mean, in general, the world now being affected by I don't know, hits of different violence, but Macedonia, especially, and the Balkans in general, are quite safe area at the moment. We have been quite turbulent in the history, but in the recent history, we're not. So, in general, Macedonia is a quite safe country to travel to at the moment and visit at the moment.
Right, because most of the history you're talking about is more sort of ancient history, not really recent history.
Yes. You can say that it was quite ancient. In the ancient times, yes, but also the Balkans have been known for I don't know, some kind of problems in the 90s, but at the moment they're quite safe, and so Macedonia is not affected by terrorism, and is quite safe to travel.
And so now getting into a little bit more about the sort of culture of Macedonia and what a person can expect when they're traveling in Macedonia, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the culture that a person will experience in Macedonia from your perspective, from your local perspective, and maybe some of the stories of the places and the towns.
Yes. Well, in general, I think I mentioned a little bit in the beginning about the history of Macedonia and all of the cultural layers that are visible in basically everywhere in the country. Even in the mountains, you can find some beautiful Orthodox churches and interesting architecture and combinations, and you can see villages that have been famous in the history, but then were deserted in the industrialization process. But in general, I can say that Macedonians are quite hospitable, and when I say hospitable, I say genuinely hospitable people. And our culture is a mix. It's a really big mix of a lot of different influences. Through the years, you can sense a little bit of the ancient Greek influence. You can sense the presence of the Romans. You can sense the presence of the Slavic people that came here. The creation of the Slavic alphabets, the Cyrillic alphabet, is something that happened in Macedonia. Then the Turkish presence for almost 5 centuries that also kind of left its own trace in the country. And it is visible in most of the places we visit, because even though we visit several major cities, and we also stay a lot in the rural areas. So you can see people that also have their own personal stories. So we're going to see, meet, and stay with or dine with some really interesting, genuine people that have lived in rural areas, in small villages, then left them and lived all around Europe, but decided to come back because their home was something they craved for. So we're going to be able to experience directly people that have international experience, but also carry the tradition of Macedonia with them wherever they went. So we're going to meet local producers of cheese. In Macedonia, the cheese production is still nomadic. So we keep that tradition. The sheep we take to the mountains in the spring and summer. We take down in the lower parts in the winter time because it's too cold and snowy in the mountains. So we keep that tradition. We keep this type of sheep herding also with the traditional dogs, the sheep herding dogs we have, and we believe that gives a special flavor to the Macedonian food in general. So we're going to be able to also see people that still cook on wooden stoves because they like to preserve the old recipes and the old type of cooking. So we're going to meet people that also keep the tradition in cooking slow foods, using local herbs to make the spices for the food. So despite seeing the culture, we are going to be able to experience the culture. In the end, we are going to be able also to taste the culture because it is still here. It is still present in our foods that are mainly farm to table. So it's a very fresh product. We're going to be able to taste, and we also will be able to see where they come from. Also, our wines, which are, I can say now, world famous because they have been rewarded with some really prestigious awards in the world. And being a small country, really small country, Macedonia is number 24 in production of wine in the world. So we have excellent climate to produce really good wine, especially the red wines. I mean, we're 163 in the soccer level, and we're 24 in the wine production. So you can see it's
shows where your
we're doing
priorities
much more.
are.
We're making quite better wine than we're playing soccer in general. So it's a mix. It's a mix of adventure and it's a mix of culture in every sense. You know, you'll have all the tastes in Macedonia.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, from when Trish came back and was showing pictures and talking about the trip, it definitely seemed like it was as much a foodie type trip as it was an adventure trip. So this is the kind of trip that a foodie adventurist, foodie adventurer quite like.
Yes. Well, we pay really big attention to the local foods. We believe that they are also something that people need to taste. Also the freshness. I mean, everything from the salads that are really good to the types of meat we cook or the cheese. Macedonia is also a country that can offer varieties of food for vegetarians and vegans, people that don't like to eat meat.
Perfect. Yeah, it just seems like there's such a great variety of food experiences as well as cultural experiences. And then the next layer of experience, and obviously a very important one because it's a BikeHike Adventure webinar, and we're wanting to introduce the options or the opportunities for adventure in Macedonia with BikeHike. So Trisha's just going to pop in and start leading the discussion and the questions about the activities in terms of what one can expect for biking and hiking and kayaking. So
Yes.
What was the first question that you sort of
So first of all, I want to say that I had the pleasure of being on the inaugural trip in Macedonia last May with Meto, and we had a wonderful, wonderful time. It was a great group of adventurers for our first trip. And yeah, so Meto, so if you could just let everyone here know, so on our Macedonia multisport, we have biking and hiking and kayaking. So can you tell us a little bit what the activities are like on our BikeHike Adventure?
Yes, I can, yes. Well, in general, Macedonia is a very mountainous country. Almost 80% of our country is mountains. And our highest peaks go up to 2,764 meters. This really big mountainous region gives us the possibility to make really different kinds of trails for biking, hiking, and also kayaking in still waters, I may say, because we kayaked in Matka Canyon, which is an artificial lake. It's a really nice canyon, very high rocky peaks from the sides, but very still water and very beautiful in general place to visit. Our biking and hiking experiences in Macedonia took us through the Shar Mountain, in which we bike on a dirt road, a wide dirt road, taking us around Popola Shapka ski center, which is one of the biggest ski centers in Macedonia, but you cannot compare it to any big resorts you're used to, because they're quite smaller than what you're used to as infrastructure. This biking trip takes us on around 2,000 meters of altitude and descends us to about 1,700 meters of altitude, giving us view to really beautiful peaks and taking us to several different streams of nice cold mountain water, and then taking us back to the ski center itself. Then we go to Mavrovo National Park, where we have also one biking and one hiking day. The biking trip is in the vicinity of Galichnik village, which is one of the most famous historical villages in the country. This village is jammed with snow for most of the winter and can start to accept guests after May, when the snow starts to melt. And besides the biking day, we also will be able to visit the only two people that stay in this village full year long, our hosts that are going to welcome us and prepare lunch for us. This second biking day we have takes us in this Mavrovo National Park, close to the Mavrovo Ski Center, and descends us also close to Mavrovo Lake, which is one of the biggest artificial lakes, and it's a really beautiful view that it opens. Both of the biking days are quite adventurous, and I would say with medium difficulty. So people that believe have some biking experience can join on these trips. And on both these trips, we're joined by Marco, one other local guide that is also the grandson of these two beautiful people that stay all year long in this very remote village in Mavrovo National Park. Our first hiking day takes us to the highest peak in Bistra Mountain, which is called Medenica. This highest peak is 2,250 meters high, and it gives us very beautiful view of almost the whole national park. It will give us the view to the highest peak in Macedonia, which is practically the border with Macedonia and Albania. It is a nice medium difficult hike that is a round hike. It will take us to the peak, and we descend on another way directly to this Galichnik village that day. And then we visit Ohrid, which I can say, as far as tourism goes, it would be the tourism capital of the country. In Macedonia, we will have the chance to visit the city itself, which is a UNESCO protected city, with all of its old churches, monasteries, and fortresses on the hills. And the hike will take us to Galičica National Park, which is a national park that divides Prespa and Ohrid Lake, two natural lakes, the biggest lakes in Macedonia. And when we hike to the peak of Galičica mountain, which is called Magaro. And on this peak, we will be able to have the view to both lakes, which are on the two other sides, which is one of the most beautiful views in Macedonia in general. So on the last day, we travel towards Prilep area and have a hike to Treskavec Monastery, which is one of the most beautiful monasteries in the country. Prilep is a base of an old volcano, so it is a granite rock area, quite rocky, quite different than everything we'll be seeing the previous days. Much more, I would say, wild in the sense of not having any type of nature around. It's just rocks and very pointy peak above us, but it's a beautiful, beautiful monastery. We have the chance to visit, and we're going to visit also the only monk that stays in this monastery, and we're going to have a nice historical and maybe spiritual conversation with him and a nice cup of tea with him. So after the nice hike, we go and we see the monastery and we have a chat with the monk. So in general, this is, as we mentioned, adventurous hiking, biking, kayaking experience, but the culture is present in every level of it.
Perfect. So you mentioned that the trip is fine for people with moderate skill level. Is there a support vehicle along for the biking?
For most of the time, we have support vehicle, but on Popola Shapka, on the Shar Mountain region, when we bike off in the mountain, the support vehicle will be, but it's not constantly with us. But it's in the vicinity, so it's not a problem to be approached by it or approach it if necessary. In Galichnik, it is similar. We have the vehicle in our presence in the vicinity, but we are not on a road that vehicles pass on. And it is practically the same with the hike. So we have support vehicle ready in our vicinity. We have 2 guides on our trip that have all the necessary training and equipment to help if necessary. And of course, if necessary, with a little bit of effort, we can be approach the support vehicle.
Perfect. So, Meto, what's the best time of the year to do a trip in Macedonia?
I must say spring is beautiful. It's beautiful in Macedonia because the temperatures are not that high in spring. And of course, with the blooming of all the things, of all the flowers, mountain flowers and trees. So it is a very, very good time of the year to visit Macedonia, let's say in May and June. Also September, and I must say we have also some beautiful days in December. July and August, we can also have some really good days, especially in the higher mountains. To be active. Just the lower parts of the country are quite warm, like the cities and the valleys down. But in general, because we stay most in the mountains, I may say our best season would be from May to late September, early October to visit Macedonia.
Perfect. And overall, in terms of cost level in all of Europe, would Macedonia be considered cheap compared to the rest of the other countries?
I would say really good value for money. So if that is equivalent to cheap, yes. But I would say really good value for money. In Macedonia, the costs are much lower than in Western Europe countries.
Mm-hmm.
So every beverage you try is good and it's quite affordable. If you want, I can compare some prices.
Sure.
Normally, beer would be up to €50 in a restaurant in Macedonia. I'm talking about beer in most of the restaurants. We have wine, the good bottle of wine you can find in the restaurants. I say high quality premium wines in the country. You can find from 10, 15 euros, and of course, if you want to try really good wine, of course, that would cost you a bit more. But I must say Macedonia is really, really good value for money. Very affordable country. If you want, I can say the locals, medium salary is about 300 to 350 euros per month, which is about $400. And we are able to cover our basic needs with this. So I can say that, yes, it is a quite affordable country, and for what you pay, you receive, I think, a good amount of things.
I completely concur with that. So what's the best way to fly into Macedonia? What city would people fly into?
People would fly into Skopje mostly in Macedonia. It is the biggest airport in the country, and it's the capital of the country. I must say it's the best connected city in our country also, so it is probably the best start and finish of a tour. Possibility to come in Macedonia, flying to Macedonia is also Ohrid. Not so well connected, but still in the season, in the tourist season, like from spring and summer, it offers a good possibility to fly.
And so
both possibilities, yes.
So a lot of
Yes.
people who were on our trip flew in on Austrian Airlines and did stopovers in Vienna, which was a fantastic little add-on to their trip. But so what airlines would fly into Macedonia, into Skopje, as that's where our trip starts?
Well, we have our best connections would be with Wizz Air from most European big cities. Also, yes, big companies like Austrian Airlines, Air Serbia, also Alitalia has also possibilities. So people can fly to Macedonia from England, from London. People can fly to Macedonia from the Scandinavian countries, from France, from Germany, from Italy, from Austria. So there is a possibility to fly from multiple places to our country.
And I know that, like, a lot of our travelers also flew. Turkish Airlines is a big one, as well as Austrian Airlines.
Turkish Airlines is also, quite big, and Istanbul as one of the stops, yes.
Okay, perfect. And so, is it easy to travel around Macedonia? If people were to get to Macedonia on their own, is it easy for them to travel throughout the country?
Well, it's not very difficult to travel to the country, of course, with the help of locals. I would say it's the best because there is good connections in the country itself, bus lines and good roads, good network of roads. The only problem would be maybe some language barrier, but I would say most of Macedonians speak basic or good English. This has improved in the recent years, so it's the level of English is improving quite a lot. So yes, I would say it's okay. Yeah, it is quite okay to travel around the country. It's not very difficult.
Fantastic. Well, I think you've given us a lot of great information, Meto, and I can just vouch for, like, our group. We had an incredible time. It was such a destination that was so off the beaten track and an emerging destination that I know that we're going to be hearing a lot more about in the coming years. So it's just on the cusp of getting into the public eye right now. So thank you so much for sharing with us all of this fantastic information about your country.
Yeah, I think it's great for people to be able to hear directly from you about the trip. I mean, as the guide for the trip, as well as a local with all this valuable information about what they can experience there. It gives them a preview of what they're up for if they sign up for a bike hike adventure in Macedonia.
Yes, thank you too for this conversation, and I must say I also had really good time with Trish and the inaugural group that came into Macedonia, and we mentioned off the beaten track already several times, but yes, it is very usual not to meet anybody in the in the hike trips or the bike trips in Macedonia. So you have the mountain for yourself. It's quite an intimate experience, and I must say that I really like my job, and through the tourists that come to Macedonia, I am once again reintroduced to my country, because I see their experience and their first time experiencing our country, our food, our hikes, our mountains, and their reactions kind of confirm to me that Macedonia is really a beautiful country. So I want to thank all the people that actually have come to my country and would like to come to my country, because through their eyes, I once again fall in love with my country every time. So thank you for the conversation.
Yeah, that's a great thing, and we feel lucky to have someone like you as our guide
Absolutely.
for a trip.
So yes, thank you for the conversation. I hope to see you again in
I'm
Macedonia.
sure you
You're
will.
mostly welcome.
I'm sure you will.
And we'll hopefully with this informative webinar, we'll get a lot more people interested in this great destination. So thanks again for taking the time.
Hopefully. Thank you too.
Okay, you take care. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
You too.
Okay,
ladies.
bye.
Ajde, ciao.